While most of us wish to believe that we stand firmly on the correct side of reality, natural tendencies have proven that the mass majority of humanity would easily cause immense pain if they were simply given a compelling cause. This realization forces us to confront a fundamental question. How do leaders manipulate us into conformity to human nature? What I have found is that through constructed fear, crafted dedication, and feelings of influence and significance, leaders are able to systematically exploit ordinary citizens by targeting their emotional vulnerabilities and their inherent desire for a comfortable existence. To fully unpack this, we will examine the strategic mechanisms behind social corruption within each branch. Our first inquiry path reveals that leaders maintain absolute control by deliberately constructing states of social insecurity, then positioning themselves as the single solution. By keeping a population off balance with the chaos they highlight, an authority completely bypass rational thought. Consider the research of psychologist Michelle Gelfand, who analyzed the direct relationship between manufactured cultural fear and voter behavior. In the research conducted before the 2016 U.S. presidential election, Gelfand tracked the citizens' anxieties regarding external threats, ranging from job loss and crime to illegal immigration and foreign attacks. Her findings were that when people feel their safety is compromised, they naturally choose to trade away their liberties for a promise of order. In the book When Execution Isn't Enough, Fieser notes that the most powerful approach to leadership involves forcing a sense of perceived legitimacy.
All methods explored, Fieser makes an additional effort to note the necessity of fooling the public, stating inspirational leaders experience 2 times more highly committed followers than non-inspirational or forceful leaders.
Fieser describes this effort as creating a network of supporters to expand the leader's power base. Once they have established their righteous coterie, leaders position themselves as the sole shield against the very chaos they highlight. These figures transform themselves into a necessity, assuring a deeply compliant following that will obey commands regardless of ethical standards. The second branch demonstrates how an authority's reassurance, whether framed through positive validation or negative fear, allows an anxious population to form a lasting attachment to their cause. For this, we look to psychologist Erich Fromm's theory of authoritarian submission. He posits that submission to an external power functions as a desperate psychological escape mechanism from the profound isolation that naturally accompanies individuals' independence, stating, when someone feels severed from their community or stability, they stand alone, painfully aware of their own insignificance. By obeying an authority, the individual is instantly relieved of the terrifying responsibility of personal choice. They no longer have to answer for their actions because they have successfully transformed themselves into a mere instrument for a higher power. Once aligned with certain biases from our allegiance, we become cognitively lazy as we begin filtering all information presented. From this, the senior social scientist, Dr. Paul, states, we become biased against elements of reality if those factors misalign with our perceived worldview. This foundation is utilized by leaders, as those who attempt to be more relatable we become more trustworthy if we view them as one of us. With our fears reaffirmed by a figure we trust, our next instinct is then to follow whatever solution they grant us, as reason has become an afterthought. This reliance is further examined within the results of the Milgram experiment.
Milgram, a psychologist of Jewish descent, conducted an experiment to understand how people were able to inflict intense tortures and what role authorities' influence held in this. Ties his subjects' perception by telling them that they were contributing to a noble cause, being to improve human memory, and when ensured that their actions served an efficacious cause, ordinary people repeatedly administered electric shocks to others.
This experiment held multiple variations, and strikingly, in variation 16, where participants merely had to pass along the commandment rather than physically flip the shock switch, the full obedience rate shot past 90%. The psychological distance from the physical act, combined with a noble justification, allowed participants to contribute to horror without carrying the weight of personal guilt. The leader successfully convinces a group of an external threat. They can step forward, giving them total clearance to execute severe action while comforting a compliance-seeking population. Our final branch tackles how alternative positions are systematically oppressed. CapCut maps 5 structural filters of mass media and manufacturing consent. Those are the 2 final elements, flack and the intentional creation of a common enemy, that are most relevant here. His framework reveals how public complicity is actively manufactured by media structures. By making systematic obedience a necessity to even have a voice, alternative narratives are suppressed. Leaders mold this voice into an additional instrument for manipulation, then justifies whatever actions an authority uses to silence it. They do not have to work in secret. In fact, destroying the perceived foe only garners them more public support. Through the structures, authorities annihilate threats to their own power, fooling the population into believing these actions were taken solely for their protection. Structural silence is further reinforced by a propaganda framework known as the fire hose of falsehood.
Characterized by high volume, rapid, and repetitive messaging, this tactic has zero commitment to objective reality or logical consistency. Forcing the public to endlessly fact-check obvious absurdities, the authority degrades the importance of truth altogether. This is where we fall into a historic pattern of acceptance, an experience Russian-born Alex Jurchag described during the fall of the USSR as hypernormalization. We are then left with the fatigue of the public as a reality is successfully reduced to a mere opinion. And with this exhaustion, society can drift into states where everyone is aware of the failing system, yet take no action as an alternative reality seems impossible to construct. Modern society forces us to redefine what control actually looks like. Manipulative authorities do not control vast populations merely through brute force or physical action. Instead, they intentionally activate human nature's most delicate vulnerabilities: our fear of isolation, our anxieties over chaos, and our cognitive fatigue in the face of complex realities. Then, by offering order and a simplified worldview, they provide a comfortable escape from the burdens of individual freedom. As humanity frequently finds it far simpler to serve a powerful master's tailored reality than to stand entirely alone in secure existence. Deception leaks into unexpected areas of our lives, and is therefore a necessity that we become cognizant of the signs, as corruption remains a potent threat to human progress as long as we prioritize comfort over personal development. The mechanisms of manipulation only work in the dark, capitalizing on our collective fatigue and hidden anxieties. By choosing to look directly at these vulnerabilities, we strip authority of its psychological leverage. Only then, by reclaiming the terrifying but vital responsibility of personal consciousness, can we begin to dismantle the invisible architectures of control that confine society.
And I genuinely never thought it would be Michael that did that.